In the state of Oklahoma and in every state, our state attorney general stands up for our state. You know, we have 19 state attorneys general who have joined together to fight against that mammoth blemish on our society called Obamacare. We should have had a 20th. I don't know where he was, but he didn't stand up and fight his liberal friend in Washington. Well, we have a chance to make a change this November. And so let me reintroduce the Office of Attorney General as the 10th Amendment Czar. We must have someone who stands up for Oklahoma. We must have someone who stands up and says, you know what, federal government, here's the line, you're not crossing over it. This is Oklahoma. You stay up there in D.C. We have our rights as enumerated by the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the great state of Oklahoma. This man I'm about to introduce to you has been a fighter for freedom and liberty for a long time, ever since he stood up against the Attorney General here and said, you know what, I've got to take up for this state worker. And he did. What did the state worker do? Oh, it was terrible. This state worker was holding Bible study in her home. Oh, heaven's sakes. That's when I knew this was a man who fought for freedom. And since then, he's gone on to serve us in the state Senate. He was Governor Keating's point man on legal reform. And he's done so many other things. But by the way, for this weekend, if you don't mind me saying so, a lot of his Oklahoma City Redhawks are going to the World Series for the first time with the Texas Rangers, as he is the managing partner and co-owner of our Oklahoma City Redhawks, a fighter for freedom, a defender of our rights and our liberties in the great state of Oklahoma. Ladies and gentlemen, the next Attorney General, Scott Pruitt.
Well, that's a great introduction, Reed, and I thank you for those very kind comments. And I'll tell you, the pastor that was just up here, I want to commend his leadership. Amen. Because to have a pastor that stands up and says that he's going to stand for the truth of the Constitution and the First Amendment, that what he teaches in his church, he's going to teach in the public square, we need to celebrate that, and we need to commend him for his leadership. And I want to say thank you to that pastor. And I want to say to you, as we gather here at the Capitol, I want to say this group is very encouraging. We're getting close, folks. We're just a few days away from, I hope, sending a message across the country of who's back in charge in America. You. Because when you look at the leadership in Washington, D.C. today, there's a mentality that comes out of Washington that says that they know best, that they want to run every aspect of our life, that they want to manage our life. They think they're smarter than we are, and they want to tell us what to do in every aspect. And I want to say to you, this movement that we're about is bigger than a party. It's not about Republican and Democrats. It's not about urban and rural. It's about a movement. It's about saying to the people in Washington, we're in control. You work for us. We don't work for you. And I want to say thank you for your leadership. When you think about this election, I think back to 1997 when I was in the nation of Romania. And I got a chance to meet a lady that was in her 80s. I got a chance to speak at a church on a Thursday evening. I was there partnering with our church. And as she left the building that night, she came and took me by the hand, and she had a tear in her eye, and she said, I love America. Here was an individual that had never been to this great country. She had lived under communism. She had been told from the time that she was born of what she could do, what jobs she could apply for, the amount of wattage that was in the bulbs in her house, where she could travel. Every aspect of her life was controlled and regulated by the government that she lived under. But people stood for freedom, as you know. And she lived through a revolution, and she took me by the hand as a young man and said, I love America. And I've thought about that a lot. What is it about this great country with someone far away who's never been here that would take me by the hand and say, I love what your country stands for? Well, let me tell you, I think what it's about is freedom and liberty and self-governance. And I will tell you, the threats that we are confronted with in this country are no longer external. They're internal. They're in the White House. They're in Congress. They believe that they're going to literally, in every aspect of our life, run it. And we need to stand against that in this state, in the reddest of red. We need an attorney general who's willing to say to Washington, D.C., we will not We will not sit idly by while you pass health care. Let me say to you unapologetically, day one as your Attorney General, I will enter that lawsuit with the 20 other states or file an independent action and say not in Oklahoma. Because the federal government does not have the power to say to you and I that we must buy a product or service under the Commerce Clause. They do not have that authority, and we need to stand against that. With the EPA has said that they're going to regulate CO2 without cap and trade being passed. Not in Oklahoma, they're not.